Okay, guys, let's get ready to start Wit and Wisdom. So we yesterday wrote an opinion paragraph on which Cinderella character we admired most. And so we came up with reasons why we admired that particular character, and you had to have an introduction telling me which story that character came from. So today we're going to take a look back at Glass Slipper, Gold Sandal, and we are going to do a word sort. So we're going to dive deeper into these settings, and we're going to figure out which places or which countries these particular things came from. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up and I'm going to let you look at it while I read. Okay? And then I've got a sentence that I have to fill in based on some clues or evidence that I found in my book. So I want you to listen as I read. She and the great king were married at the palace, where the guests feasted on mangoes and melons, rice seasoned with almonds, beef stew and lamb stew, Asine cookies and custards. Such a wonderful wedding it was, and such an adoring couple, such a wondrous turn of events. So our job is to figure out what food came from which country. So as I look carefully at this page, I can see that it says, she and the great king were married at the palace, where the guests feasted on mangoes and melons. And in Zimbabwe, that's where they serve mangoes and melons. They ate rice seasoned with almonds. That's what they serve in India. And beef stew and lamb stew. That's the food they serve in Ireland. As well as Asine cookies and custards. That's in Mexico. So when I'm going through and I'm trying to figure out which food was served from which country, this is going to be my sentence frame. So in just a minute, your job will be to look at each particular food, and I will put the page up, and you are going to fill in the sentence frame. Blank is food from blank. So I'm going to go back to that very first thing that I said, and it was mangoes. So I want to choose mango as my food. So I'm going to start my sentence with a capital letter, and I'm going to write mangoes. Okay? So mangoes are food from, well, now I have to go back and I have to use my picture clue to help me. So I'm going to find my word mangoes. And I see that mangoes are served in Zimbabwe. So on my sentence frame, I'm going to write Zimbabwe. Okay, now I hope you noticed that I capitalized my Z because it is the name of a country, and we have talked about that if you have the name of a particular place, it's a proper noun, so it has to be capitalized. So, mangoes are food from Zimbabwe. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out footwear. So, I'm going to look back at my page, and I'm going to read. And as I read, I want you to take notice of the words of the countries of where this footwear is from. So it says, and on the girl's feet appeared a pair of glass slippers, diamond anklets, and sandals of gold. So as I read each one of those, you should have been looking at the name of the country. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sentence frame for footwear and I am going to fill it in. Well, the one I remember are gold sandals because that's the title of our book. So I'm going to start my sentence with a capital letter. So gold sandals. Gold sandals are footwear from, well, now I've got to figure out where my gold sandals are from. So I'm going to take my book and I'm going to look back at the evidence and I can see sandals of gold. It's the same thing as gold sandals. And the Cinderella in Iraq wears gold sandals. So what I'm going to do is I am going to write Iraq. Notice I capitalized it because it's the name of a country. Now, the last one that you are going to do is going to be clothing. So I want you to listen carefully as I read about the clothing. You're going to have 2 pages, so I want you to listen carefully.